So I want to ask you for a quick favor. All I need you to do is to stop whatever you're doing right now, take a pause and look around. Now think about all the man-made objects around you, including a phone, TV, or a laptop, or whichever you're using to watch this video. Now try to name all the things that were used to build that, and I guarantee you that you will not be able to name more than a fraction because we need a lot of things to make that. The issue is the fact that soon we will have to start looking elsewhere for those things. Now, before we look into the possible future, we need to take a step back and look into our past. Since the early beginnings of our race, we were set on a path of success, largely because of this rocky, mineral-rich marble that we call home. See, at first, our ancestors realized that those shiny rocks can be used in many different ways to make their lives a lot easier. They were strong and yet easy to reshape, making them ideal for tools and weapons of all kinds. That was crucial in hunting and protecting their lives and the lives of their families alike. That, however, was just a tip of the iceberg. Soon, people realized that soil itself, more specifically clay, can be made and retain its shape after it's properly baked. That allowed us to make larger pots and urns used for long-term storage of goods and belongings, further accelerating our development. Then came metals, copper and iron. They were harder to process but offered more in a form of strength and durability. Now right around this point, roughly 8000 BC, is when we realized that unlike clay and rocks, which were easily accessible, in most cases it's just a matter of picking them up, metals were a different bunch. For starters, they were in most cases buried underground, therefore they required more effort to get to. Now this practice, known today as mining, was pretty rudimentary at first. Using basic tools, they were only able to get us to those metals and minerals that were just under the tip of the soil. But that was totally fine, and it did fulfill the early needs of our ancestors because they were pretty limited as well. Now moving forward, that will change dramatically. See, unlike the early instances when metals and minerals were primarily used as tools and weapons, later civilization expanded that use to various aspects of life. Forgeries and mints were printing coins from gold and silver. Jewels were becoming a cornerstone of showing your status level on a social ladder, while weapons and tools started to be made almost exclusively from these precious gifts that rested beneath our feet. It wasn't, however, until the 18th century and the Industrial Revolution that our dependence on mining became so obvious. Coal became a symbol of progress. It was powering everything from roaring steam engines that crisscrossed our continents, giant ships that were now capable of unimaginable speeds thanks to its boilers, all the way to city factories that were now replacing thousands and thousands of human workers. Now, as the 20th century came to a close, that marked a new era, where everything will be dominated by electronics and digital assets. It is easy to detach ourselves from reality, though, because everything is a click of a button away these days. However, those super sophisticated machines that we take for granted and use on a daily basis are still made from those same minerals and materials that our ancestors used before us. The only difference is that these days we have to dig for more and more, to the point that we realize that this is not sustainable in the long run. We're polluting our air by burning and processing fossil fuel, dumping dangerous chemicals into our clean water when processing ore, or simply destroying our forests and fertile lands just to gain access to more. So what's the solution? Is there a way to continue to grow and advance, or the future brings nothing but ruin unless we stop everything? Well, according to some, the answer to the problem below our feet is actually right above our heads, and that is space mining. As of now, mining anything in space is not so near future. Yes, I'm aware that the space race is ramping up, especially now when it becomes dominated by the private sector. But there is still some pretty serious hurdles to jump over before we can start bringing space over. Firstly, launching anything into space is very, very expensive. Rockets require an enormous amount of energy just to lift itself from the ground and escape the Earth's gravity well. The potential equipment needed for mining will weigh hundreds of tons, even if you make it super modular. This, of course, can be offset with the sheer value of potential ore, but at bare minimum we would need more sustainable fuel source. Now, nuclear energy is one option, but as we know, that comes with different problems altogether. But for the sake of argument, let's say that we have that figured out. Next one will be making those ships and rockets reusable. This one may not be that far. We all know that companies such as SpaceX have done so much more in this regard. And although there is much more progress needed in the shape of reliability, it is definitely a step in the right direction. So after we have that solved, we have to find a way for future space miners to sustain themselves in months or even years at a time while they're fulfilling their mission. See, it takes around 3 days for a rocket to reach the moon, which is by far our nearest celestial neighbor. Getting to a mineral-rich asteroid will take months or even years. As you can imagine, sending a resupply vessel is not that easy or simple, nor is it sustainable. For the most part, the initial supplies will only last for so much, so the crew will be tasked with producing and making most of the things that they may need themselves. Again, this is something that we have been working on, most notably on the International Space Station environment. But again, this is by no means a done deal, but it will be possible to grow food and provide oxygen on a long journey with the technology on board. Okay, so we took off, we got plenty of food that we can grow ourselves, and the oxygen is locally brewed. We touched down with an asteroid, and now what? Well, the first problem is low gravity. See, unlike here on Earth, just landing a drill or loader wouldn't be that easy. And unless we firmly attach it to the surface, it would just float into the open space together with everybody in it. Another issue will be extremely low and high temperatures that would make any work extra challenging for the equipment and miners alike. Add high radiation to all of that and you have a true nightmare to solve. All that, however, even if it gets solved, would leave us with another issue. And that is, what should we do with all that extra material when we don't need it anymore? See, we're being buried with trash as it is, and let alone when we start bringing more of that back here on Earth. We will have to improve our recycling technology, because the only other alternative to that will be launching it back to space, which will be even more expensive and even less popular. Now, I don't want to be that guy that sees everything as negative. In fact, there will be quite a few benefits to space mining. Our understanding of the universe will be dramatically expanded. We would master new traveling abilities that can potentially lead us to new worlds. And the economical value is obvious. Best of all, we can possibly reverse climate change on our own home. Whatever happens will inevitably develop in front of our eyes, for better or for worse. So I really appreciate you tuning in today. If you like my content, please hit a like or subscribe on the way out. Leave a comment if you want to share your opinion on this. I post 2 short videos per day on various interesting topics, and I do 1 longer video such as this one on Saturdays. I also have a Patreon account, so if you want to support me that way, you can check out the link down in the description. As always, stay safe and see you soon.